Hello, everyone.
Hi, Donna. How are you?
Hi. Good. How you doing?
Hanging in there.
Yeah. We're going to the ranch.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hi, Amy. Good to
How
see
you doing
Hi,
today, Donna?
Good, good. How about you?
Oh, great. I think we had spring yesterday. I think it's over.
That's it, huh?
Yep, it's over. It was so
Short-lived.
beautiful yesterday.
Well, you're going to see some nice, they have nice weather today on the ranch. So we're gonna
Is that
see some
someone
nice
from
weather.
Michigan talking?
Yes, ma'am. It's Amy from Midland.
This is Shirley in Detroit.
Yep,
Okay.
we had
I
one
recognize
day
the
of
weather.
spring.
All right. Well, I think we have a lot of people in here now. I think we should get started. I'm going to start my intro. Don't forget to mute while we have our presentation, everyone. So I want to welcome everyone to GetSetUp special event on Dunrovin Ranch. Expect the unexpected at Dunrovin Ranch with SuzAnne Miller. My name is Donna. I'm a guide at GetSetUp, and I'll be your host today. As a community of active older adults who are looking to stay informed and connected, GetSetUp is thrilled to have SuzAnne with us today to lead us in a discussion and a tour of Dunrovin Ranch and all that it has to offer as the seasons are changing. Before we get started, I want to cover a few housekeeping items. If you have a clarifying question with SuzAnne while speaking, please let us know in chat and we will do our best to call them to her attention. We will also have time to take questions at the end, the second part of the event. And for those that are watching from the lounge, you are welcome to enter questions into chat. We will do our best to address everyone's questions today. And now on to our special guest. SuzAnne Miller retired from a 35-year career in wildlife and fisheries research throughout the Americas, only to return to her home state of Montana to open a small boutique guest ranch where horses are partners and guests are friends. SuzAnne loves nothing more than sharing her world of horses, wildlife, and birds along the beautiful Bitterroot River in western Montana. Escape your world through a portal of multiple web cameras to become a guest at Dunrovin Ranch. Let ranch owner SuzAnne introduce you to the handsome Tennessee walking horses, the charming ponies, Captains Lewis and Clark, I like those names, and mischievous donkeys, Divas, Miss Gertie and Miss Maude, that host guests every year from around the globe. Watch the ranch staff go up to the 57-foot-high platform with its huge nest to prepare for the spring's arrival of Harriet Osprey and her mate, Swoop. The topics we'll be covering today will be, we'll take a tour of the Dunrovin Ranch, the geese invasion, and preparing the Osprey nest. SuzAnne, welcome to GetSetUp. We're so glad to have you today.
Donna, thank you very much. I'm just thrilled to be with everybody. And I just want to give everybody a big Montana howdy from Western Montana. We're on the very edge of Montana. We could throw a rock into Idaho from here practically. In fact, I have ridden my horse from here into Idaho. It's in a lovely mountainous area. These are the Bitterroot Mountains. And can we bring our webcam broadcast up, Donna, so people can see the ranch, and I'll get started with the tour. All right. And if you can make that the main screen, that would be wonderful so people can see. Perfect. Thank you very much, Donna. What you're looking at right now is the roof of our barn, and you will see what we call a big boy toy right here, which is positioned underneath our osprey's nest. And I'm going to start the tour with the osprey's nest because our entire cyber ranch, and that's what I call what we have right now, is a cyber ranch, started with this osprey's nest. In 2011, the University of Montana contacted us to put a web camera above an osprey's nest so they could study the number of fish that came to the osprey and take some blood from the chicks to determine water quality in the Bitterroot River. Well, when I went to turn off the web camera at the end of the season, I got scores of emails from people all over the world saying, no, 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 don't do that. We want to watch your ranch, because they could see the animals behind it. This caused me to put in a whole bunch of new web cameras. We now continuously transmit 4 different web cameras, and I will show you all of those before the day is over. First, let me say that right now, what you're looking at is the backside of the osprey's nest. You can see the web camera kind of hanging over it, and you see these bird feeders. And this is what we use in the winter time to attract little birds to come to the nest so people can watch birds all year long. And what happens here is the little birds come for the seeds, and then the big birds, i.e. hawks, come to hunt the little birds. So this is a very active place year round. But let me pull the camera back here for just a minute, and I'll show you the lay of the land. We call ourselves a boutique guest ranch because we're a small guest ranch on the outskirts of a little community of Lolo, Montana, which you are seeing in the distance. In fact, if you look over here where this big mound of dirt is, the Lolo community is building a new school over there. So we'll have school kids as neighbors in the not too distant future. But I'm going to start swinging the camera around so that you can see the mountains, etc. So right now you're looking a little bit northwest, and I'm going to swing now towards the west. And as you can see, this is very mountainous country. And you're going to start noticing that we're moving away from the community and more to agricultural land and eventually to almost wilderness. Now, if you look at that notch in the mountains right there, that's the route that Lewis and Clark took in 1805 and 1806. They went right up through that mountain range. In fact, for a long time, we had a plaque on our property that said we were the site of the Lewis and Clark camping Travelers Rest. That wasn't true, but it is very close by. And here we have the largest mountain in our immediate area, which is called Lolo Peak. And now I'm moving towards the south. And one of the things you'll notice here are our big clouds and our big sky. Montana is called big sky country for a reason, and that is because the dramatic influence of the Rocky Mountains creates very dramatic skies that you can see across these very wide valleys. This is very typical of Montana. Okay, so now I'm looking almost directly south, and you can see our property and our neighbor's property, and I'm moving now to the east. And as I do, you'll see that there is a riparian forest. That's where the river is. And it's just beyond our house down here. I think I can show you just a smidgen of the river. And the mountains behind the river are called the Sapphire Mountains, primarily because indeed there are sapphires to be found in the Sapphire Mountains. And you can now see the Bitterroot River through the forest. This camera has what's called a pan tilt zoom capability. It can zoom in just like we've done here, and it can zoom out, and it can give you, rotate on 360 degrees. So here's our pasture. Here's our dance hall where we have weddings in the summertime. Here's our garden right here, big garden plot. And then this goes up to an orchard where we have apple trees, pineapple trees, etc. And then back to our horse area. And right now we're looking at what we call the corral area. And most of our horses are out at pasture right now, and we'll see them just a little bit later. But the horses that you're looking at right now these are little ponies, and they're called Captain Lewis and Captain Clark. And maybe you can guess why that is so. they look like they are brothers, don't they? They look very similar to each other. They're very same coloring, but they're not related, believe it or not, but they have the same heritage. And that is their mothers were Haflinger horses, which are the smallest draft horses in the world. And their fathers were Shetland ponies. So what this is a cross between a small draft horse and a pony. And that means these horses can really pull. And that's why we call them Captain Lewis and Captain Clark, is because they are co-captains of their cart that they pull. And kids love to ride in this cart. We have delivered brides to weddings in the cart. They've gone all around town and even been in parades. And behind them, we have our donkeys. And our donkeys are what we call our donkey divas. They are loud. They have incredible personalities. The gray one is just slightly older than the brown one. And these two gals dress up to go visit senior facilities and schools and go in parades. And if everybody understands that when you get older, you get to wear purple. And then, of course, there's the Red Hat Society. So these girls wear purple and red. The gray wears the purple because she thinks it's a nice contrast to her gray coat. And the brown one wears red because she thinks it accents her amber tones. And these girls have all kinds of costumes and go all around Missoula and the Bitterroot area to greet people. They're considered our mascots. And right now I'm going to go over to our ranch office, which is almost directly beneath our camera. And I'm going to ask my very able technical assistant to come out where we can see you, James, and wave to everybody. This is the Mr. Magic from behind the camera.
Howdy, everybody. How y'all doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a fun day here at Dunrovin. It's been a busy one.
Yeah, just as we said earlier, whatever can happen will happen. And one of our cameras broke early this morning, and James has been very busy fixing it. But all is well that ends well, James. It seems to be working just fine. All right.
Yep, we're doing good. Now you've seen the man behind the curtain. I'll get back in there.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz. So from the ranch camera, we're going to end up at the nest camera because we have some special things to show you there. But let's take a little tour around again to what we call the bench camera. I'm going to show you it here from the ranch camera, and then I'll ask James to switch us to that camera. We have this big pole here, and underneath it, I'll show you the actual camera. We have another web camera that is positioned over some bird feeders. And we call this the bench. Do you want to go ahead and switch us to the bench, James, so people can see through the bench camera? That's great. So we have this great bird feeding station. And as you know, the birds are messy. So they spill lots of seeds on the ground. And what that does is it attracts deer and foxes and mice and squirrels and just about everything. This place is humming day and night with different kinds of birds. You'll also notice that we have a flamingo here, a pink flamingo. Well, our site, we have a virtual village in which we have a number of members from across the world who watch us daily and who participate with us daily on the ranch. And one of these wonderful people sent us a couple of pink flamingos. She said the bird feeding station needed a flamingo. So sure enough, she sent us some and we planted them right out there. This is a flamingo from Florida via Wyoming, I believe. I also want to show you this little tree here. Our members often want to commemorate the horses that have lived here. So when a horse dies, we often plant a tree in its memory. And this is Annie's tree. Annie was one of the matriarchs of the Dunrovin herd, and she died a couple years ago. And so now we're all watching Annie's tree, which, by the way, gives very good cover to the little birds. When the hawks come to hunt them, they dive into that little tree. In fact, I think you can see a few of them in there right now. Let's see if we can find a few that are in there. You can see there's a couple that are in there. But when the hawks come, it's just full. And sometimes the hawk tries to get in there to catch these little birds. And the reason we call this a bench is, as you can see, it's kind of flat right along the edge of our field. This again is our dance hall. The white structure is our dance hall in the background. And here we have the bench just falls over into the riparian forest. And this is what's called an ecological edge. It's a very important place in ecology because it brings in birds from both places. Forested birds like woodpeckers come, but also birds that normally live in the fields or in the prairie come, such as meadowlarks and other kinds of birds, red-winged blackbirds. So here you can see our pasture, which oftentimes has our horses, but right now they're down by the river, and we'll get to seeing them in just a minute. And this is more of an eye level view of our place. So here again is Lolo Peak, and now you're seeing it more at eye level than from high above. And again, we're going to the south here. And this is the Bitterroot Valley. The Bitterroot Valley is between the Bitterroot Mountains. Lolo Peak is in the Bitterroot Mountains, and the Sapphire Mountains, which are these mountains to the east of us. And the Sapphire Mountains are very wild. We have many wild animals there. We've seen bears and cougars and elk, big herds of elk, golden eagles. There's even a herd of wild horses in that mountain range, which we see on occasion with our web cameras. And you can see down to the river area. And in fact, you're going to see some of our horses down there. Let me see if I can, I'm having a little difficulty operating this camera. Just stay with me. Sometimes. All right, you can see the horses down there, and we'll get a better view of them in just a minute from the river camera. But our river camera is right down on a cantilevered pole by the river. I'm going to try to show you where that is. There's our horses, and they're eating down there, and just right by the river is our river camera. You can see this black tower. That is where we have the river camera, and it is on this tower and then cantilevered over the river. So you can see right straight down into the river. In fact, this morning we had a flock of merganser geese that landed on the river right in front of the camera, and you could see them diving and swimming underwater. So that's our river camera. And I'm going to ask you now, James, to go ahead and switch our broadcast to the river camera, and I'll take people on a little bit of a tour down there. The Bitterroot River is just a marvelous river. It is a what they call a blue ribbon fishing river, and that's because it is very well known for its trout, cutthroat trout, rainbow trout. People from all over the world come to fish on the Bitterroot River. And this is the southern part of where we can see from our cameras. This sandbar is one that often attracts a lot of wildlife. We commonly see deer there in the morning. This is a place where we've had an eagle almost all winter coming to this particular beach to fish. And we also have a family of great blue herons that often visit. And this camera is something that will swing all the way up into the sky if we wanted to. I'm going to take you up along the mountainside now, and then I'll come back to the river. But sometimes on this mountainside, we will see wild horses, a big herd of elk. In fact, this last winter, we saw something really unusual. we saw a golden eagle chasing a whole herd of elk. And I sent a little video clip to raptor researchers, and they were all wondering what was happening, because it's unusual for a golden eagle to attack adult elk, but these were all adult elk, and they were attacking this herd, and they were just running as fast as they could across the mountain. It was a pretty interesting event, but I don't see anything right now. Just the other day we had horses over there, wild horses, but I don't see any right now. And as I've said, we've also seen elk and cougars and deer of all kinds, and both species of eagles. So this is the Bitterroot River, and this is where our resident osprey, whom we call Harriet and Swoop, fish. And I'm going to show you some things here in a minute about osprey. But first, let's go and see if we can't find some of our horses that are down by the river. So this is the beach right on our property, and this is where the mergansers were this morning. And here we have some of our horses. Now you're seeing the back part of this arm, this cantilevered arm that goes out over the river. So this metal thing that you're looking at here is part of the web camera. And this little box is a box that we set up for a wood duck's nest. We get wood ducks, they're very beautiful. But the truth is, tree swallows have been using this box for the last 3 years. So we have a family of tree swallows that are using this box. So here are some of our horses. And as Donna pointed out, all of our horses are Tennessee walking horses. And I know that people who don't know anything about horses think, well, what's the deal? Well, every horse has 4 gaits, 4 ways of going. They can walk, trot, canter, and gallop. And a horse that is walking has 3 feet on the ground at one time. Only 1 foot is off. When a horse trots, 2 feet are off. It's the diagonal pair that come off. So it's very bouncy. It's a 2-beat gait. A canter, there's always 1 foot on the ground. And with a gallop, all 4 feet go off the ground. Well, a horse that is what is called gaited, or a Tennessee walking horse, has gaits that are between those 4 gaits. So for example, a running walk is like a regular walk, except it's very fast and animated, and it does what's called an overstep. If you watched a horse walk in the snow, you would see that its hind foot would step exactly where its front foot was. You would see the print of its hoof on the same side over the print of the front foot. But on a Tennessee walker, their back legs come anywhere between 18 inches and 24 inches in front of where their front foot was. So for each stride, they are covering 2 more feet than a horse that can't do that. They also can do things like what's called a foxtrot, and that is, instead of having the 2 feet come off at the same time, there's a split-second difference between the front foot and the back foot, which means it's much smoother. And that's what these horses were bred for. They're bred to cover long distances very smoothly. And when you go in the back country with these horses, which is something that we've always done, you will cover twice as much ground as a non-gaited horse. So you can expect a quarter horse, for example, to cover about 3 miles an hour in the back country, whereas these horses will cover somewhere between 6 and 7 miles an hour. So they're much faster. And these are all, none of them are related except for 2. This horse right here, I'm going to focus on her. She was born here. She is named after my father. Her name is Lady Lonza. And she's what is called a champagne colored, a very rare colored horse. She's not a Palomino. She's champagne. You know, she has a dark tail and dark markings on her legs. She's what's called a champagne, apricot champagne. And this is her son. This white looking horse is actually a Palomino. This is her son, and his name is Augie, and he will be 5 years old in May. So these are the only two horses that are related here at Dunrovin. All of the other ones are not related. All right, James, do you want to take me back to the, unless we have any questions, I'm perfectly happy to answer questions at any time. If you have anything, Donna, do we have anything yet? All right. So this is, take me back to the ranch camera, James, if you wouldn't mind. All right, and I'm going to take everybody back to the ranch area and to where James
SuzAnne,
is going.
real quick here. We do have a few questions you could address. I think if you open the little chat notification, there might be a few. We had a question about the horses down in the riparian we were just looking at, if they go down there on their own or if someone brings them down there.
Oh, okay. Let me finish moving the camera here and I'll take a look in the chat and I'd be happy to answer questions. I'm going to put this back on the nest because we're going to be talking about that momentarily. Let me see. Yes, we have people take the horses down to the riparian. We do what's called mob grazing. And what that means is we force our horses to eat the grass in one particular area and then move on. And why do we do that? Well, for a couple of reasons. Horses, they'll go for the fresh grass every time, the new shoots of grass. And there are two things wrong with that. One of them is it stunts the growth of the grass. So it ruins your pastures, but they'll find the newest shoot and eat it for sure. And then it's not good for the horse because it's where sugars are concentrated in the grass. So the fields that you have been seeing, we will fence off in the summertime with electric fencing and make them move from section to section to section. And during this springtime, when the grass starts to green up, they will come off the grass entirely. And why is that? Well, horses evolved on the steppes of Asia. They are meant to walk about 20 miles a day, eating all the time and eating very low quality forage. And when they start eating green grass, that's too much sugar and they can get the same thing that people get very akin to diabetes. And it actually manifests itself very much like diabetes. It manifests itself in the feet. And they can do what's called founder, in which their feet become very sore and they become unusable. So it's really important if you have horses on green grass, one of two things. They need a lot of exercise. So in the summertime, our horses are being used all the time so they can eat the green grass without a problem in terms of the diabetes. But if they are out there just on an open pasture, they won't eat the mature grass. They'll look for the new grass all the time. So what you want to do is do this mob grazing. Okay. And the wild horses, by the way, that are across the river, they do travel hundreds of miles a year looking for forage. And I don't know if you noticed that area, but it was very sparsely grassed. There's no irrigation. So in the summertime, it dries up and those horses have to move a great deal of distance. Okay, so bears. Do we have bears? We do have bears. We have seen bears on camera, and we have seen, and we've had bears in our apple trees, and we try to keep them out. Of course, we have a 6-foot high fence around our orchard to try to keep them out. We have not yet seen a grizzly, but grizzly bears are in the area. In fact, just yesterday in the local newspaper, we have for the first time a sow and 3 cubs, a grizzly bear that has denned up near the city of Missoula. And last year, or maybe the year before, a wildlife biologist put a radio collar on a grizzly bear, and they tracked her. In the middle of the night, she walked right down through the middle of Lolo, right through our community. And there was another one that ended up on the golf course about 15 miles south of us. So we do have bears, both grizzly bears and black bears, but mostly black bears. So here we're looking at our horses again. And let's go ahead back to the ranch camera, James, and let's have you go on out to the net. Oops, nope. I want to ask James to first show a short video. One of the things that James is going to do today, in addition to taking down our bird feeders, is we're getting ready for our osprey to return. The earliest that the female osprey has ever returned was March 26th. And when he takes those bird feeders down, he's also going to do something that you're going to find surprising. And that is he's going to put a goose decoy on the nest. And why, you're going to ask? Well, it's because the geese will try to steal this nest. And what we're going to show you is a 5-minute video from 2017 of the very first days that Harriet, the maternal osprey, returned to the Dunrovin nest. So why don't you start that video, James, and people can see exactly what happened in 2017. It wasn't just geese that bothered Harriet. So here's a couple of geese checking it out. They're looking over the nest, a possible nesting site. And sure enough, a couple days later, here comes Harriet. That's the osprey. And when she first lands, she lands and then she spends several days away from the nest, feeding herself. She's just migrated from the Gulf of Mexico. This is her first landing. Now, keep track of the time here, because she only stays a few minutes on the nest and then she takes off. The same day, here comes Mrs. Goose, all right? And we're yelling at her from the ground to go away. She can't have that nest. We keep telling her, but she's not paying any attention to us. She's just going about her business. And here you'll see in a moment, she lays an egg in Harriet's nest. You'll see her lay it in just a moment. There she goes. Here goes an egg. And we are yelling at her. I am, trying to get her to leave because this is not a good place to lay an egg. Harriet's not going to like this. So what happens? Well, let's see. About an hour later, Harriet returns, and she's not having any of it. Here comes Harriet, and that goose is cooked. That egg is cooked. Off she goes. So let me tell you that this is not the first. Other nests, osprey nests, have had geese eggs, and they've actually hatched. But of course, a little goose can't be fed by an osprey. So that the very next day, there's this huge snowstorm. So here's the egg, and here's Harriet. This is all fast time. This is Montana in the Rockies. So you can see the snow is building up. Both the bird and the egg get completely covered with snow, only one day later. This is typical of Montana. You can see it's covering Harriet's feet. It's covering the whole bird. And as soon as it stops snowing, it starts to melt. It's a spring snowstorm, and spring snowstorms don't last very long. So you can see it melt before your eyes. There was a lot of drama this particular year, all in a couple of days. And you can see the snow's just starting to melt. And the whole time Harriet was there. Well, now I want to tell you, Harriet tried to get rid of that egg. She knew it wasn't her egg, but she can't pick it up. Her beak is meant for tearing meat from a fish. But here comes somebody who can help. Here comes a raven. And look at this raven. He's almost looking around to see, whoo, is somebody going to catch me with this egg? Let's just check this out. That's a big raven. And there he goes with the egg. Problem solved. So now that very same night, Harriet is just, getting a little shut-eye on her perch, and look what happens. A great horned owl thinks it's going to take the nest. And great horned owls will actually capture and eat osprey chicks. So this is not somebody you want in the neighborhood if you have an osprey's nest. But this great horned owl was around for several years, attacked 2 of the chicks when they were older the following year. I haven't seen it for a while, but I'm sure the great horned owls are still around here. But I was worried when we saw this that Harriet would be, dead below the nest, but she wasn't. You'll also notice with this photo that you can see at night. We have infrared night lights over all of our cameras so people can watch day and night. There's some good questions here. Does the snow kill the egg? It can, but it also doesn't have to. Birds' eggs often don't start to mature until they're incubated. And in fact, my answer to will the snow kill the egg is related to the next question, which is how often do they lay eggs? And I'm going to respond with respect to osprey. Ospreys are they will lay eggs very close, one day at a time, or over maybe 3 or 4 days. And often what they will do is what's called delayed incubation. They only lay 1 egg at a time, but they want those chicks to hatch close together. If they don't, the chicks grow so fast, the chick that hatches first is going to be way bigger than the chick that hatches last. So they will do what's called delayed incubation, and they won't incubate the egg. It doesn't kill the egg to be unincubated. It just prevents it from growing. So we have seen Harriet do that a number of times. Okay, I want to show you that just yesterday, look what happened at the nest. Can you show this little video, James? Here we go. This is just yesterday. There's Mr. and Mrs. Goose thinking they're going to move in. So ever since we had that time where the goose laid its egg, when James takes down the bird feeders, we now have him install what we call Mrs. Goose decoy. And it's a decoy goose that we set on top of the nest. And then as we hear about ospreys in the area, we can flip the goose off of the nest right before Harriet comes to keep the geese away from taking the nest. Okay, James, are you ready to run out to the nest pole? Before he gets going in his big boy toy, I'd like to first introduce you to the man behind the big boy toy. Chuck, are you there? Is Chuck there, James? He's on a cell phone. Let's see if we can awake him.
Yeah, he's just getting his phone unmuted.
I had to go get it. Yeah, I'm
Well, hi, Chuck. Give us a wave. This is these are 2 people who work here. This is Chuck and Nicole. Give us a wave, Nicole. There, these guys work here. And Chuck is going to babysit this horse. And there's a reason that this horse is off by itself. Will you tell us about this horse, Rusty, Chuck?
Yeah, so this is Rusty. He's a horse that we just picked up about on the, I believe it was the 11th. of this month. Anyways, he's in quarantine, keeping him away from the rest of the herd for 30 days, just to make sure that he didn't bring any sort of disease with him. He came from Kentucky. We actually picked him up in Washington, but he spent 3 days in a horse trailer with about 29 other horses on his way out to Washington. And he was there for a couple of days, and then we picked him up and brought him back here to Montana. So this is his quarantine spot for about 30 days, and then he'll get slowly introduced to the rest of the herd. And they are herd animals, and they're dominant horses, and so rather than just throw them in the whole herd and get totally picked on, he just gets it a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
But
And I'm going to back up here a minute and show you that we've left a couple horses up nearby him that he can see up in this field here. Because as Chuck said, horses are really herd animals. So we left a couple horses up here that he can see and smell. These are horses in our herd, and they're just left up here to kind of babysit the new guy. So that they can't come nose to nose with him during quarantine, but they see each other and they whinny back and forth to each other. And this gives the new horse a little bit of comfort to know that he is around other horses, even though he can't come in contact with them. And then ultimately what we will do is let this horse Rusty out into this larger area, and he will get to know those horses over the fence first. So the horses get to know each other over the fence, and then we actually introduce them to those same two horses kind of as beginning horses, and in hopes that he'll make a couple friends right away before he has to be introduced to the whole herd. Okay, I'm wondering, are you out and about down there, James? Can we get you to go over to the pole? All right, here comes James, and I'm gonna.
All right, yeah, I had to get the goose.
Okay, why don't you introduce us to Mrs. Goose? Well, in a moment.
Yeah.
First he's going to put a sign up. These
So we've
signs.
We've got two signs. They represent the nesting pair and any of the offspring that they had. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 signs represented here, 8 different years. And we've got a new one that we're putting up. So we're going to put up number 9 today. I'm just putting up the first one we've got here from 2013. We use that as a sample for the new sign that we needed to make. So that is installed. And we're going to go ahead and put our latest sign up.
And it's a little bit breezy, so the camera's moving a little bit, James. Can you tell them what names are on there and why we named the chicks those names?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got is Harriet and Swoop. We're the mating pair, of course. And we've got Pfizer, Maude, and JJ. And if you couldn't guess what those were for, those were in honor of the vaccines that we had that helped us move through the pandemic last year. And so these signs are now attached to the pole. You can see we've got more wood here to attach to, so we hope to be doing this for years to come. We've got 2013 at the bottom, 14, 15, 16. In 2015, we did not have any chicks in 2015. So it's just Harriet and Hal. That was a new mate. And 16 and 17 and 18 and 19, we're all with Hal. And then Swoop, Harriet took a new mate with Swoop in 2020 and 21. And so this year, 2022, we're looking for Harriet and Swoop to return again here in just a few days. And SuzAnne, what days do we typically see the ospreys arrive, and it's normally just one of them first. Is that right?
That's correct. Normally Harriet arrives. She's kind of an early migrator. And it's unusual. If you read about ospreys, they'll tell you that the male comes first, but that's not true for us. Harriet is an early migrator, and we assume that she goes to the Gulf of Mexico because there have been ospreys that are banded. In fact, all of our chicks except one have been banded by the University of Montana, and we've had photos of our banded chicks. They have big blue bands on their legs, given to us from El Salvador, from Louisiana, and from Texas. So you know that they're all down around the Gulf of Mexico. And you think about that. Here's a chick that's born here in Montana, and it knows to fly to the Gulf of Mexico. It does it independently of its parents. So we're expecting Harriet to arrive somewhere around April Fool's Day. It seems right, you know, the very last day of March, the April Fool's Day or the 2nd, she's almost always here. And of course, you know, someday she won't come. They live to be about 25 years. She's been here a long time, and she had to have been at least 3 years old to have mated and created a nest. So she's in her teens at a minimum. So someday all of our hearts will break and Harriet won't return. I'm confident, however, that the nest will attract other osprey. Every year, other osprey come and try to fight Harriet for the nest. It's a very popular nest, and I'm not exactly sure why. Okay, James, I'm going to focus on Mrs. Goose here for a moment. This is nothing more than a goose that a hunter might put out in the water. And you can see it's on a board here. And what we do is we put a line on the front of that board and one on the back, and we tie it to the fence. And then as soon as we see osprey in the area, we flip the whole thing off so that when Harriet comes, she has a clear nest. Did I lose you?
All right,
James?
SuzAnne, no, I was wondering if you'd like me to switch to the nest cam, and
Yes.
you can follow me up and get some close-ups of putting the goose on the nest.
That'd be great. All right. So here we have the nest camera. And it all started with this nest camera, and James will be joining us just momentarily right here. I also want to tell everybody that you can join us and become a member of our virtual community by going to www.daysatdunrovin.com. We have a whole group of people who are with us every day, who watch what's going on, and we talk to, and they talk to us. So if you'd like to do that, please come and join us. We have a great community. The nest, oh, Julie, the nest was here when we moved here 25 years ago. In fact, the nest was originally on a power pole. And when the University of Montana asked us to put the web camera on it, the power company said, no way, you're not going to put a web camera on a power pole. So they came out and installed this huge 57-foot pole on our property and picked the nest up. And I'm going to show you how big this nest is. At that time, several years ago, they figured it weighed about 350 to 400 pounds. And the ospreys are the one that build this nest. And interestingly enough, the little birds every year make nests inside of the osprey nests. And it is the perfect place to make a nest because the little birds are protected by the presence of the ospreys. Because remember, it's those darn hawks that will try to kill the small birds, but because the ospreys are there, the little birds are protected. So this place will just be a humming condominium of birds very shortly. And this year, in addition to taking down the bird feeders, James is going to remove the top layer of the nest. And why? Well, because it's easier to remove the top layer than it is to move our camera up. And last year we had a hard time seeing into the bowl to see the eggs. Every year you can almost see where last year you can see the latest layer. If you look closely, you can see that there's a little bit of a layer here, this top layer that they added last year. They're incredible architects, Karita, just incredible. And this first month when they come, that's what they will be doing. They will be madly making their nest. They will add sticks, and then they will get what we call duff. And the duff often consists of my hay. They never pay for it, by the way. They never pay for their hay. And what's really fun is they'll go to the fields and pick up my hay and bring it to the nest, and then they'll go for some more, and the little birds will come out from under and steal the hay and put it inside the nest. So here's the osprey stealing the hay to put on the nest, and here's the little bird stealing from the ospreys. It's quite a show that goes on during nest building. So here's James again with his goose. Do you want to give us a hello there, James?
Yeah, howdy everybody. So we've got the goose here, and underneath the goose, instead of the goose that lays eggs, we've got the goose that lays string. We've got some string tied to the platform here, and we're going to get everything situated in such a way that we can take this goose down in just a few days. It doesn't take long. We normally have this up for, I don't know, maybe 10 days. It's not long at all.
Yeah, we have a countdown on our website for Harriet's arrival. And right now the countdown says 13 days, and that's really till April 1st, but she could come earlier than that. So what I do is I keep my ear to the ground. I'm kind of connected with all the osprey people in Western Montana. And as soon as I hear that osprey are showing up, we take the goose down because we don't want to deter Harriet.
And this is one of SuzAnne's favorite times, telling me what I need to do while I'm up here. So SuzAnne, tell me where I need to position this goose this year.
Well,
we want to present a good view for the camera here.
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty darn good, James. You've got a good view of you too. Can you give us a smile? Yeah.
All right. Well, if we're good on that location, I'm going to drop these strings.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt though, James. You may want to pull a few sticks off before you plant.
You're right. Now, how much do we need to pull off? That's an extremely important question. We want to pull off 6 inches, 12 inches. What are we looking for?
I think 12 inches at least, James. I think
12 inches. That's healthy. Yeah.
Layer, yeah. And I think what you need to do is just throw those down. Be careful about Rusty. Let's not have things rain down on Rusty. He's already nervous about this big boy toy. We don't want to scare him anymore. But what we're going to do is save these sticks, and then we're going to make some souvenirs out of them, some Harriet souvenirs of some sort or another. From sticks that Harriet has used in her nest. I have to say, we have a lot going on with Harriet. All of us who have been watching her these many years, just love this bird. She has shown such stamina and resilience. You saw her there in the snowstorm. I have seen her sitting on an egg in a snowstorm and so cold that her eyes froze shut and she had frozen icicles coming off of her beak. She's just an incredible bird. We just love her.
We're getting through multiple layers, multiple years, really. And there's all kinds of stuff that we've found in this nest. We've even found llama hair in this nest that they picked up from about 5 miles away, I think.
I see some old hay in there.
Well, there's definitely some of that. And everybody's seeing these bird feeders. They do come down. That's part of my job this afternoon later. So if you want to stick around after we're done here, we'll leave the camera running as long as GetSetUp platform is able to be on. And we'll be working on removing these bird feeders. So you're welcome to watch, or you can come on over to the website and watch us anytime over there. Now here's some big pieces of fluff and everything in the nest. I'll save some of those. Maybe we can lacquer those and save them for some sort of thing. Here's a piece of rubber. That's exciting. That looks like it came out of the back window of a car or something.
Yeah, the various birds that have been mates of Harriet have brought a whole variety of things. We had one male who just loved to bring potted plants. He would bring tufts with all kinds of plants growing out of them. And then her original mate, who was named Ozzy, he did a really interesting thing. He would bring bark from the cottonwood trees, and then he and Harriet would strip the bark from the inside and create this beautiful duff from the bark of cottonwood. And what's interesting to me about that is it has medicinal qualities for animals. So it was really good for their chicks to be born in this duff that was created from the strips of cottonwood tree bark. Yeah, this is going to help a lot, James, to be able to see.
Yeah, I think so. We've already removed a healthy amount here. We're coming up to that 12-inch mark probably.
Yeah, that's good. We'll keep them busy this spring.
Oh yes,
SuzAnne,
they will be fun.
Oh, hi, SuzAnne. I'm gonna have to break in here because we are kind of coming to the top of our hour here.
Okay, that's
Anybody
great.
have any questions?
Well,
burning questions here for her?
I see one person say, how do you know who's who?
Oh.
And that's a really good question. Harriet has some very particular eyes. You can always tell Harriet by her eyes. And when after the osprey land, they all look the same at first. All ospreys look the same, but you get to tune into some very subtle differences in terms of their coloration. But that's a great question. Oh, they want to see the pile that you've actually put down. Is it below the nest, James? Can I go down and see what's happening below the nest?
Yeah,
Okay,
there's a lot
there it
of
goes.
detritus down there.
Yeah, right down there. And you can see it's very close to where Dusty is. I'm sure he's, and this is why Chuck is being so very good about staying with Dusty, because Dusty needs, or Rusty, not Dusty, pardon me, Rusty needs a little bit of confidence from Chuck. I mean, not every horse gets to stand under a big boy toy with stuff falling out of the sky. So he's naturally nervous. To be expected. All right, that looks great,
All right,
James.
so I've got this pretty cleaned up. I'll clean up the other side when I get a chance to move the platform here a little bit later, but I think we're looking pretty good with the depth there, and we should be able to see down into the nesting bowl when the eggs arrive.
Yeah, that's what we want. All right, I think we're going to say
All right.
goodbye to the GetSetUp folk. I want to
Yes.
thank you.
Well, SuzAnne, I want to thank you. It's been great having you here today to teach us all about your ranch. It's really been great and fascinating to see all of this. If you want to learn more about SuzAnne by checking out her website and following along on social media, you can see these links. They're in chat. They're also going to be in the email that you're going to get at the end here. And I want to thank our audience here in the live studio and the lounge. I want to draw attention to some relevant classes on GetSetUp. If you like this event, one of our other classes might be of interest too. Look for the link to sign up and chat here on Zoom, in our live streams, and at getsetup.org. And remember, everyone who registered will receive an email after this event with follow-up links and notes, including links to some relevant classes and other exciting upcoming guest speakers. We look forward to seeing all of you in future classes. SuzAnne, I guess, is going to be back next month, so you'll have more ranch time, all you city people. You can get to see what's going on the ranch. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you for coming in. And thank you, SuzAnne. Thank you, James, and everyone at the ranch for your great demo.
Thank you very
Thank you
much,
so
everyone.
much, everyone. This has been great.
Enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Bye, Donna.